this introduction to embroidery is going to go through the following. So we're going to go through a little bit of the embroidery threads, what it is made of, which one is more shiny, which one is best to use, but most of them, those three are the biggest ones used in South Africa. We're then also going to go through the different types of thread. So the rayon, the polyester, cotton, silk, metallics, and then specialty thread. And then we're going to run into the background of stabilizers, why and when to use them, what is the differences of the stabilizers, and then I'm going to show you how I frame different stabilizers using different, either a t-shirt or a towel, or even knitwear. So that is just what we will cover today. So to start us off, we are going to start with different embroidery thread, and we're going to start with marathon thread. These documents will be made available later on our website for download. So I'm just going to go through a quick few things of marathon because we have a limited time available, and I want to kind of show you how to frame the different materials, because I think that's what most people want to know as well. So we're going to start off with marathon embroidery thread. So marathon is designed with a Pantone licensed color chart. So that is what the designers used, because it gives you more vibrant, brighter colors, and it is more accurate when printing. So that's why they use the Pantone color chart. You also get some other color charts that the designers use, but Marathon specifically uses Pantone. You can even go onto their website if you're interested in seeing how they create these Pantones, how it is designed. And then Pantone also gives you a Color of the Year award, and you can definitely see the trends that match up with that. So with Marathon, at the moment, I believe there's 377 solid colors and 22 variegated colors available. And then they bring out new colors every once in a while. Like a while back, we had something called Mother of Pearl, but it was later on discontinued. It's like for a short amount of time they bring out these new bright, vibrant colors for us. Then Marathon is made up of 100% viscose rayon. This is a very, very high tensile strength and like a sulky luster. Sulky means high sheen and soft glow, if you were wondering. And this one is best for high-speed embroidery machines. And you can also use it on decorative stitches on your sewing machine. But Marathon works extremely well for our high-speed machines. It doesn't really break as easily. It just slides through, and you can use it on any embroidery machine. It's not limited to any of the machines. Okay. So color is very consistent across the various dye lots, and this is because they use those Pantone colors. Because they work with different percentages, you've seen how they mix paint. There's a little bit of black, and there's a little bit of green, and there's a little bit of yellow and red, and then you come up with purple. So that's how they guarantee these different, or the same color over different batches, is because of that Pantone license that they use. And then as well, threads are manufactured in a very state-of-the-art facility, which then helps us get that reliability of thread, that strength is the same, the color is the same, and it is very, very durable. So a lot of people have asked me why we use the specific thread. It has an exceptional sheen to it, and it has a very soft touch. So especially when you do baby grows and things like that, it's a very, very soft thread to use as well, and it's very wash durable. Okay. Going on to the next one, we have colorful thread. Colorful thread is made up of a polyester blend, and it is manufactured with a trilobal polyester yarn, which also gives you a very, very high sheen embroidery thread, and it's also very strong and durable. So the trilobal polyester is the multiple filament, twisted, high sheen, continuous thread or fiber thread, and it gives you a very, very bright appearance. And the advantage, and this is a very good advantage of the colorful thread, You also get a triangular shape fibers, because of how it is twisted, and this helps to reflect light, so it also gives you that great attractive brightness in your embroidery and your textiles. It also has a very, very high strength, and it is very durable for washing, which also makes it a very popular choice in South Africa. And they have 270 colors available. And apart from that 270, they also have a range of neon and metallic threads that come in 1,000 and 4,000 meter spools. So it's a great thread to use as well. Very durable, very wash durable, and easy to use. Moving on to the next main thread we have in South Africa is Isakor. So this is a very, very universal, high quality, 100% polyester thread. And this thread is unique because it can be used for embroidery thread, as a machine sewing thread, and it is very often used in quilting as well. It is, although not as shiny as the other two threads that we've spoken about, but it provides you with the right amount of elasticity for high speed running. So this is also a very good thread for for running on high speeds. Sometimes I know some people don't like running their machines on full speed, but you can do this with this thread. It is very, very strong. It is also abrasion resistant and robust, and it has excellent color fastness. So this one, as well as with the Marathon in the beginning, very, very color fast. You can wash it multiple times. It runs beautifully if you accidentally put too much strong chemicals in the wash. Some people do that. So it will hold its color and it would not bleed like some colors do. Okay. So what you can also do, let me just see if I can put my camera back on, and you can also see me as well. Okay. So these are just the three main threads we use, popular brands we use in South Africa. There are, however, many, many other brands available, like Glide, Madeira, Papagei, Gutermann. There's just a few that we sometimes also use. Glide is also a very, very strong fabric, and Papagei has also got great colors connected to it. So moving on to the next one, I see there's a little bit of a delay for the slides coming through. So if yours doesn't come up, just let me know, then we can sort it out as well. So then we're going to move on to the different thread types. This is now where what the Marathon and the Colorful is made up of. So our Marathon is made up of a Rayon thread, and this is the most popular choice simply because of its high sheen and widespread availability. And it has a very, very consistent performance that it doesn't really break. It holds up to high speed stitching. It doesn't really fray. So this is a very nice fabric that they use, and it comes in a very, very wide variety of colors because as well Marathon uses the Pantone colors, and there are thousands of colors in the Pantone charts. You can go look at that on their website if you just Google Pantone colors. Okay, so that is Rayon, mostly made up of Gutermann, Madeiras, certain Madeira, Mega Sheen, and these are all just subject to availability in South Africa. We do have Gutermann and Madeira here, but the others are mostly from overseas brands. Then the next one we have polyester. So this is a popular and economical thread. Just want to see if how many people are back on. Okay. This is a popular and economical thread, and it provides a similar effect to the Rayon, and also comes in a wide variety of colors. Polyester thread won't shrink and fade, it also won't bleed, and it is great for children clothing because it is also soft, same as the Marathon threads. And the Rayon thread has a slightly higher sheen than polyester, so that is where the Rayon thread has a little bit of an advantage. But when you combine these two threads in one design, you'll barely be able to tell the difference. So for this one, the polyester is also colorful. I didn't add the colorful there to the bottom, but it's mostly colorful and your Isakor types of threads. Moving on to the next one, I almost forgot to move the slide up, sorry. You also have cotton embroidery threads. This is mostly overlooked also because of its availability, but it performs beautifully and has a lovely soft sheen. So it's a very soft fabric. thread. So, but like I said, it's not really available here in South Africa. It's difficult to get your hands on these. And this is also a finer thread. So thread usually has between a 30 and a 50 weight is what we call them. And your best one to use is a 40 weight. That is what your marathon and colorful thread is made up of. This one is a little bit thinner, the 40 weight, and it needs less tension on your machine to guide it through. And it takes a little bit longer to fill if you're using a stepping stitch in your design. It takes a little bit longer to fill because of being a little bit thinner. So when you have a 30 weight thread, it's a little bit more heavier, it needs a little bit more tension, and it's quicker to cover the area that you are embroidering. So just on a side note there, just to give you a comparison of thread weights, bobbin thread weighs 60 in the chart that they use to measure the threads. So it's a very, very thin. If you've looked at our bobbin thread recently, you'll see it's a very, very thin thread that's consistently woven. And that is a 60 weight. So if you compare your bobbin thread, that's very, very thin. So the higher the number, the thinner the thread weight goes. Okay. Or the thinner the thread is. So then moving on to the next one, we have a silk thread. And silk absorbs dyes very more brilliantly than other fibers because of silk being an open thread, what we call it. And it is considered truly the aristocrat, sorry, always a tongue twister, that one, of specialty threads. And this is just, it has the combined strength of polyester, but also the stability of a cotton thread. So it's a combination between the cotton and the polyester. So it gives you that strength and that soft durability or stability. And it also sews smoothly without breaking. So this is a great thread also to use, but also again, subject to availability in South Africa. It also has a sheen that is literally unmatched by any thread. This is one of your most shiniest thread. If you look at silk, it reflects light beautifully. It also comes in a wide range of sizes from anything up to 30 to 50 weights. And it is mostly appropriate for our embroidery machines. It will run smoothly without breaking, but it is more costly and not as readily available everywhere in the world. Okay, so and it is also considered one of the more luxurious brands, and it shows most beautifully on luxurious fabrics. Okay, so here you can see silk thread is the top choice when embroidering on silk and other luxurious fabrics, and it's made by Genome, Tire, and YLI Kanagawa. So there's a truck in the background. Is it here by us? Is it bothering everybody? Can everybody still hear me beautifully? Am I still clear? It's not making ridiculous sounds here at the back. Everything's still fine. Perfect. Okay. Because it's quite annoying here at the back. Okay. Then moving on to the next thread type. Let me just have that on load. There we go. Is our metallics and mylar embroidery threads. Thanks, Isabel. Mylar thread is not really available that much in South Africa, but we do have the different brands all have their metallic range. Marathon has a beautiful metallic range. So metallic thread is manufactured with a center core, and then it's wrapped with foil, very, very thin slivers of metal foil, and that's what gives it the that metallic look. And you'll see sometimes when your metallic thread frays a little bit, you can really see those thin slivers of metal foil that's wrapped around the core. Have a look at that. That was very, very, very cool to see it actually, that it's foil wrapped around this thin cord in the middle. It is mostly durable, and it gives you that desired metallic thread. So it gives you a nice sheen sometimes in different designs. I've got mine in the car now. I wanted to actually show you. I did a unicorn where I did it worn in the metallic silver thread, and it absolutely just looks beautiful. So other metallic threads have a coating of rice paper. So this is also how they are manufactured in different ways. but they do all have that center core that the other paper or foils are just wrapped around. With metallic threads, when you handle them, it requires a little bit more handling than your normal rayon and cotton thread. Sorry for that, the English and Afrikaans joining in my head here. But to work beautifully with the metallic threads, you can always have it stand at the back of your machine. Then you come over the cover, and you can then put a thread net over the metallic spool, and this will just help for the metallic to unwind, so it doesn't create those ridiculous loops that it sometimes does, and then it hooks everywhere, and that is sometimes what causes the fraying as well. So metallic threads do not really like it to be on its side when it is unwinding into the embroidery machine. Different brands is the Madeira. Then of course we have our Marathon and colorful brands. Then we also have the Maitler metallics. It is available in South Africa, but they have very, very small spools that they have available. Yeah, so mostly people go for Marathon and Colorful's metallic thread. So then looking at the Mylar, like I said earlier, it is not a very widely available thread in South Africa. But this is a thread that is made up of piles of film laid together, and then it is sliced. So I looked at how they make it, and it's very, very interesting if you want to go have a look at that. But the metallic thread, not the metallic, the Mylar, it's very difficult to find it here. I've tried different places and I couldn't find a specific place to tell you like this is where you can buy it, because this is also a beautiful thread to work with if you Google what it looks like. I think most people also use it for hand embroidery. That is also a very popular place to use the Mylar types of threads. It has various aspects of manufacturing it, and that affects how the thread behaves in the embroidery machine. So it depends on how many layers they have, how they cut it, and what raw ingredient that they use in the manufacturing process. So this all affects how the Mylar thread will behave in your embroidery machine, but it also takes a little bit of special handling when working with it, the same as your metallic thread would. And you also have a wide variety of colors available, and they also have these holographic colors that is just, it's beautiful, because depending on how the light catches the thread, it's the light that it reflects or the color that it brings out in your thread. So the brands, like I said, there is some Madeira jewels, but I haven't seen them in South Africa that much. And then you also get Sulky, which is a big popular brand in South Africa. I'll just let it jump. There you go. Then you also have special effects. Yes, Elske?
No, I'm busy listening while I'm listening to you.
Okay, no problem. Then we also have the last one. It's our very special effect embroidery thread. So these are also inclusive of those neons and fluorescents. The metallic thread also falls under specialty thread, but mostly the specialty is you get a fuzzy acrylic or like a wool-based type of thread that you can brush. That if you embroidered a bear, for example, you can brush the thread with a little comb or even like a toothbrush, a hard toothbrush, and it would lift all those fibers and you would have a fluffy bear. So there is quite a few different specialty threads available to you. And then also we have some threads that change color when exposed to sunlight, or even the glow in the dark type of fabrics. So with the sunlight, it would glow at night if the fabric has had enough time to charge. Because that's how glow in the dark works. But then it's very, very important to remember you have to follow the special handling techniques set out by the manufacturer. Otherwise, the thread is not going to behave like it should. So if it tells you to lessen your tension a little bit, you have to do that. Or if it tells you make sure the spool is standing upright, not have it on its side. It's very important to follow the manufacturer's specified instructions. Okay. Any questions so far on any of the threads? Everybody's still good? Any questions? Everybody good? Okay. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So next we're going to move on to the different stabilizers. So we have different types of stabilizers. Most stabilizers are non-woven stabilizers. I have some here, let me just pull them in closer. Okay. And they are made with a process where the fibers are all smoothed to a single consistent layer. Sorry, I forgot to move the slide over. So it is very important when selecting a stabilizer. It is essential to look at the different consistency in the fibers. I want to show you this one specifically. I'll move my camera around now so that you can see it beautifully. So stabilizers, let me just pull out the other one as well, has to have a consistent, let me see if you can see this. It must have a consistent weave. Let me see if I can let me just stop my screen share for a second so that you can see my big screen. Can you see there, the stabilizer is very inconsistently woven. It has these little spots just like there, move my hand in the right direction. There it's very light compared to over here. So it's very, very important when looking at stabilizers that you find one that's very consistently woven. Okay, this will help your design. I just want to get my document again. This will help your design to embroider more evenly, because if you have lighter areas, it would provide less support, and others the thicker areas would then result in more support, which is what we want. We actually ultimately want a great support. But if you use a stabilizer that's inconsistently woven like the one I've just showed you, it can result in alignment issues. There we go, we're on the right slide again. It can result in, like I said, the alignment issues where sometimes your line is off. It's not a very good stabilizer to use when it's inconsistently woven like that. Yeah. Stabilizers are always categorized by how they are removed. So you get a cutaway, a tearaway, and a washaway. So these are the three main categories and what they are broken into. But then each category is then broken down into subcategories. And this is either if they stay in or if they are removed and the different weights. So stabilizers are also categorized in how they weigh, and we're going to go into that in a little while. So is it a lightweight stabilizer, a medium weight stabilizer, or a heavyweight stabilizer? Those are the three main categories, apart from just the cutaway, tearaway, and washaway, that we look at when selecting stabilizers. So then how do you select the right stabilizer weight? We're going to go into that in a moment. There is different preferences as well, but this is the basics, what they always teach. So the heavier the fabric or the more dense the fabric, they say you should use a heavier stabilizer. But some people counteract this by using 2 layers of medium stabilizer instead of 1 heavyweight stabilizer. But this is also where preference comes in. So we'll go into that in a little while. So how do you hoop the different stabilizers? Mostly, whenever it is possible, you would hoop your fabric with your stabilizer and spray a little bit of a spray adhesive in between the two so that they stick together and don't move. So that is the best way to hoop your stabilizer. But we do sometimes float our stabilizers. We'll look at that in a minute. Let me just jump, there we go. Sorry, just going to open the chat here on the side again. You can see someone joined us. Okay. So, why is it important to use the right stabilizer or the correct stabilizer? This will help your fabric from moving. It's very important to know that fabric was not designed to have this added weight added to it. So when we do embroidery, we add weight to the normal fabric, and that is why it's important to use the correct stabilizer and to add a stabilizer to your designs. So the better, although if you use the right stabilizer, you would have more beautiful and aligned pictures for your embroidery or for any project that you take on. And then stabilizers are absolutely the foundation to a successful embroidery project. If you're using the incorrect stabilizer, you could have loose thread tension, you have that misalignment, and it just doesn't really look as beautiful when you're using the correct stabilizer, or when you've not used your stabilizer and your thread with a 505 spray adhesive in between the two layers, because then sometimes the top layer can still move. That's why it's best to frame the two together. And then your stabilizers will help your threads or your stitches stay in place and looking good after a while. So this is absolutely adding stability to your fabric. So without your stabilizer, or not using the correct one, or using a lighter weight stabilizer for what is needed for your fabric, you can have some puckering, you can even have holes in your fabric, and 90% of the time you will have a little bit of an alignment problems in your embroidery designs, and then you don't have beautiful designs, which is what we all ultimately want, those beautiful embroidery designs. So like I said earlier, manufacturers don't anticipate us adding anything to our fabrics, and that's why they created these stabilizers. And it is important to support the stitches of your embroidery design within your fabric. So fabric also adds, thread adds weight to your fabric, so we need to support that weight. So the general rule is, if you're working with a heavier fabric, you can use Tearaway stabilizer, but when you're working with a lighter fabric, you would use your Cutaway stabilizer. That one is the best choice. So that is how you would choose between the two. Heavier fabric, you can use Tearaway, but if it's a light fabric, you would use Cutaway. We're going to go into the difference in the stitch and tear and Cutaway in a moment, so then you'll understand why we use Tearaway for a heavier fabric. So selecting the different stabilizer is mostly based on personal preference. We have some veterans in the embroidery world here on the call with us today, and you can even ask them. Mostly they just go on preference. Some people would prefer this very open, not very consistently woven stabilizer, where others would choose one that is very, very much, I'll switch my camera around in a moment and I'll show you the thick, or like the properly woven stabilizers. So it's just absolutely, I would say 99% of the time, it goes on preference and experience in what you embroider. And then each different stabilizer, with the Cutaway, the stitch and tear, or the Washaway, you use on specific suited products or projects and products as well. So sometimes you have to use a Cutaway, and sometimes you have to use a Washaway, and you cannot use anything else. Each one has its own characteristics. So to make this decision easy, you really have to consider your fabric. If the fabric is a little bit lightweight, a little bit weaker, it is best to use Cutaway. When your fabric is heavier, like denim and canvas, it's best to just use a Tearaway. And then we'll look at the weights in a minute on which weight goes for what. It looks like a lot of words on the screen. You see there, let's just change that a little bit. Okay, so now going into the different stabilizers and also how to use them. We're first going to look at Cutaway stabilizers. This stabilizer, it really can be used on any fabric. It can also be used on denims, and it can also be used on cotton fabrics. But your Cutaway stabilizer is mostly used for your knits and stretchy fabrics. When you use a stitch and tear, it sometimes still moves, and it washes away in the end when you've done your project. And Cutaway would really, really stay in there and support those stitches within knit and stretchy fabrics, which is absolutely important. And like I said, Cutaway would keep your stitches in place and prevent them from distorting after the embroidery. So when it's gone through wash, the Cutaway would just absolutely keep that stabilizer behind your embroidery design on the knit and keep your stitches where it has to be. And then Cutaway also holds the best, like I just said, when something goes through the wash very often, especially t-shirts or golf shirts, they always use Cutaway. I have seen people use a layer of stitch and tear and a layer of a cotton fabric that matches the shirt as well to get around the costs of Cutaway Stabilizer, because it is a little bit more expensive. If you're a veteran in the embroidery world, that is a direction that you can go into. Cutaway is also, when you're starting to embroider, it is one of the I wouldn't say the better ones, but it's the easier ones to use when you're starting out in embroidery. So it will give you a great stitch quality, and you're keeping your stitches in place, as it doesn't move and tear as easily as stitch and tear is, or not, yeah, it doesn't tend to, it does perforate along the edges of your embroidery. So it pulls out quite easily, but we'll go into that in a moment. And then Cutaway Stabilizer also holds the most amount of stitches. So when you have a very, very dense design, it is great to use a Cutaway Stabilizer. But what you can also maybe do is you could use 2 medium weights stabilizer of stitch and tear. Sometimes people do that as well. But like I said here, medium weight Cutaway could support as many stitches as a heavyweight stabilizer that is stitch and tear. So this is again where the type of fabric is very, very important. So when removing Cutaway, like it says in the name, you have to cut it away, and it is best to leave a 1/4 inch edge around your embroidery design. Little tongue twister there. But be careful not to cut it any closer, because then it tends to leave a ridge, and we don't want that. And you can also then cut your fabric or cut the stitches, and then your embroidery would come loose. So 1/4 inch is the recommended industry standard when cutting away or removing the excess stabilizer. Then, like I said, you get stabilizers in a heavy, medium, and lightweight. So for our heavyweight Cutaway Stabilizer, it comes in black and white, and it's mostly used on knits, woven fabrics, shirts, anything that stitches an intense, heavy embroidery design. So something that needs to hold a lot of stitches. And that is available in an 80 or a 90 GSM. So that GSM stands for grams per square meter. So that is the weight of the stabilizer. Our medium weight Cutaway Stabilizer comes in white, and it is used on medium weight stretchy fabric. So on your lightweight denims, you can use your medium weight stabilizers. And this one would also soften in the wash, whereas your heavyweight takes a little bit longer to soften. So that one's not the best to use on shirts or something that, something that's very, very soft. You would not use that one. Okay. So, and this one is available in a 75 GSM, so grams per square meter. And then we have a lightweight Cutaway. I'll see, I only have the one weight. I have the heavyweight Cutaway here. Let me quickly pull this one closer. So I don't know if you can jump between my screen. Maybe let's do the stop share, then I can show you this one. This is a medium weight Cutaway. You can see I cannot hear it. You have to cut it, and you can barely see through it. So this is a very medium weight, and it is still in the right direction of the camera. There we go. It is still a very soft stabilizer to work with. Just move this on. Let me just quickly grab my screen share again. Just grab the document, share, and just jump over. You can just edit again. Okay. Why is that cool? Moving on. Any questions this far? Everybody's still good with the information? It's a lot of information to remember. Thanks, Tina. I need one more. There we go. Perfect. So then lightweight also just comes in white. This is also considered a lightweight, but we'll go into that in a moment. And this is for lightweight stretchy fabrics like T-shirts. And you can also use it on knitwear. It will keep the stitches if you don't have a high dense embroidery design. Otherwise you would go up in your weight. And this one is available in a 55 GSM. Just move that one. No. Then looking at your Tearaway Stabilizer. This is used in projects where most or almost all of the stabilizers has to be removed. So such as towels and linen, you have to get in between the little letters and remove all the stabilizers, something you cannot do with a Cutaway Stabilizer. This one can support more stitches than Washaway. So Washaway is your Avalon stabilizers, but not as many as your Cutaway. What you can do though is you can use 2 layers of stitch and tear stabilizer, then it would suffice if you don't have Cutaway to work with sometimes when we embroider at 11 o'clock at night. So it is also often preferred because of its easier removal. It gives you that cleaner look when you embroider and you have to tear it away at the back. That's why they sometimes use 2 layers of stitch and tear instead of 1 layer of Cutaway. So you can do that way around as well. And then Tearaway is mostly used for sturdy, ready-to-wear items like bags and hats. They like putting it on the inside of hats or somewhere where they can just tear out the outside, leave the inside of the design or of the stitch and tear on the inside of the designs, and it would wash away over time. And you can also use stitch and tear stabilizers when you are working with your sewing machine. Sometimes you have just a very, very thin fabric and you feel like your stitch quality is not the best on your sewing machine. You can add a little layer of stabilizer at the bottom of your sewing fabric, anything that you're sewing with. And then it is also used for stabilizing buttonholes. You look at my screen on the side. I did some buttonholes for us over here. Maybe a little bit closer. You can see the difference in quality just when adding a layer of stitch and tear stabilizer. So that is a great way to have beautiful buttonholes, is just to layer it between your fabrics. Okay. Then when removing stitch and tear, it is very important. You always pull towards your stitches, but you will also support your stitches with one hand. So you tear towards the stitches with one hand while holding the stitches in place with the other one, just supporting it so it doesn't move around or create any tears in your fabric. Not tears in your fabric, but so it doesn't move around your stitches. That's basically what I want to say. So very important, hold your stitches and tear the stitch and tear towards you or towards your design. And if you've used more than 1 layer at a time of your stitch and tear, it's very, very important to remove 1 layer. Okay. Did I say that correctly now? If you use 2 layers of stitch and tear, only remove 1 at a time. That's what I wanted to say. No, I'm confusing myself over here. Okay. So moving on to the last one, which is our Tearaway, not our last one, but moving on to the weights of the stabilizer. You do get a heavy weight, and it comes in black and white. And this is the one that I was looking for. This is a medium weight stabilizer. I don't have the heavyweight one with me at the moment. And then you can also look at this one that is not consistently woven, which would also count as a lightweight stabilizer. But this is also just different quality of stabilizers available. There is one that is beautifully woven for a lightweight Tearaway. So your heavyweight Tearaway comes in black and white, and it has a very, very stiff and crisp texture. Like you can see, if I fold this, it would just absolutely, it would stay there. It's not going to bounce back. Okay. And it is available in a 95 GSM. I would like to say there that we rarely use that one. Most people prefer rather using 2 medium weight layers of stitch and tear than going up to the 95. But it is still, it's a nice stabilizer to use, especially when you're doing those overalls from the men on the mines. Then the heavyweight stitch and tear works great then. So the medium weight tearaway, it comes in black and white, and it is available in a 70 GSM. Then we have our lightweight tearaway. Sorry, someone is just asking me something.
What's up?
Okay. Okay. So then we have a lightweight tearaway. Someone from the office just asked me a question. Sorry, guys. It's available in white only, and it is used to stabilize the lighter weight fabrics when it has a low stitch count of embroidery or an embroidery design that you're going to put on. So it's not going to be as dense. Then our lightweight is available in a 50 GSM. So it's very, very light, it's a very soft stabilizer to use. This one's not moving on. Okay, there we go. Then we have Washaway stabilizer. This is our last stabilizer to look at. And it is made up of a chemical starch that dissolves in water. So you have the two different ones. You have Avalon and Avalon Plus that we're going to mainly look at. So if you use a fabric with a sturdy design and your lightweight is not enough, your lightweight stabilizers, you can add a layer of Washaway. And this is best to use it with sheer fabrics, such as your organzas, your tools. This is specifically talking about Avalon, not Avalon Plus. We'll look at the difference in a moment. And this is a fabric that creates a smooth surface on the top. So this is not a stabilizer that you'd use at the bottom. This is mostly a stabilizer that's used on the top over your fabric. And the Avalon is specifically used, not specifically, but mostly used to contain fabrics, fibers that has a pile or a nap, such as towels. So this is a stabilizer that you would use over the top. And this would help the stitches not from sinking into the fabric and disappearing into the pile of a towel. We also use Washaway stabilizer, which is our Avalon Plus for our freestanding lace and applique design. And then both of these are removed with warm water. With the Avalon, you could just use room temperature water, but with Avalon Plus, it is best to use a warmer water. Okay. And also remember, the stabilizers contain starch, which is something that you have to either rinse out, or if you want your fabric or your stitches, like on freestanding lace, to be stiff, you would either leave it in longer in the water or take it out even more quickly. And this is where we go into the three different ones, but we mostly use only the Aqua Foam and the Aqua Mesh Plus in South Africa. So the Aqua Foam is also known as Avalon. Most people don't know it as Aqua Foam, they just talk about Avalon. This is a clear plastic. I'll show you this one. This is a very, very clear plastic that we'll also go into in a minute. You can see through it as well. And this is what's used on towels and your gowns that has a pile, because this is too lightweight for freestanding lace, and it's not something you just frame on its own. It doesn't work for that. Then you have the Aqua Mesh Plus, also known as Avalon Plus, or some people call it Solvi. But it's also just very important to remember, sometimes they use Solvi for just Avalon and Avalon for Avalon Plus. So make sure you get the correct one when you want to work with that. This is a very opaque mesh water stabilizer, and it does support a great number of stitches, and this is what you would use for your standalone lace designs. And because it is not prone to perforating at the start, whereas your Avalon, your normal Avalon, perforates like your stitch and tear. And the excess can just be torn away, cannot be torn away. With Avalon, you can tear it off. With Avalon Plus, you cannot tear it off. It has to be rinsed away. So you'll also cut away the excess because you can save those little pieces later on. Very important to know there with Avalon Plus, if it stays in the water longer, you will have a softer design. But if it's in the water for a short amount of time, you will have a harder design. And this is simply because of the amount of starch that's washed out of the embroidery design. Then we also have something called a badge master. This is a heavier water soluble stabilizer. As you can see, it's quite heavy, but it is also used for freestanding lace. But I prefer just using Avalon Plus instead of the badge master. Also, the badge master is not readily available in South Africa. And you can also remove all traces of the stabilizer, as it is rinsed away easily with lukewarm water. Okay. Any questions so far, ladies, before we move on to framing of different projects? Everybody still good? I'll just grab a sip of water. Okay. So, just as a little disclaimer, this is how I used to, or how I was taught to frame different fabrics, bringing in some of my own techniques, but also how most of them are, how it is done in the industry standard. But there are so many other ways to embroider, to frame your different fabrics and stabilizer. So if you have a different way that works better for you, stick to it. You don't have to follow my ways. These are just the basics of framing different stabilizers. So this is just what we're going to frame: some towels, a t-shirt, a golf shirt, knitwear, and show you how to lace or how to frame for freestanding lace, denim, and then cotton types of fabric. But let me just stop that share. And then I would like to turn the camera. I'm going to move us around so that I have my working space and just so that you can see. So sorry for the little roller coaster ride. Let's just move down. And I just want to flip my camera around so that you can see my workspace. Okay. I just want to tighten the camera mount and move you a little bit like this. Oh, sorry for that roller coaster. Didn't realize it was heavy. It's a little bit top heavy on the one side. As you can see all my different stabilizers there in the back. Let's see, it's going to stay that way. Yes, it does. Okay. So just to quickly see if I can show you, this is a medium weight stabilizer, and as you can see, it's not as see-through as this lightweight. So you can even see my fingers there in the back. So that is the difference between a light and a medium weight stabilizer. And this is specifically stitch and tear. But then you also get a stitch and tear that is perforated. Let me see. Yeah, there I can come in nice and close and show you. So this is also a stitch and tear stabilizer, but it is perforated and it just tears quite easily. So depending on the brand or the make you go with, this is considered light to medium weight, but mostly light. And this one is also used quite a lot as the perforated stabilizer. So we're going to first start with the towel. So I'm just going to unscrew my frame. Loosen that quite a bit because I know my towel is quite thick. And you can even get the middle, depending on how people frame or hang their towels. It's important to get the middle. Get the middle of the towel. I'm going to embroider in the middle of my design, or my design in the middle of the towel. Lay it over. So now you have two ways of doing this. You can either use a big piece of Avalon and frame it with. But for me, this wastes, oh, look how skew I'm going. It's okay. For me, this wastes a good amount of stabilizer. And as we all want to save, we all want to make our products last so much longer. So I'm wasting basically all of this here in the hoop. So I do not prefer hooping this way. I prefer, but you can, if you feel more comfortable doing it this way, please do it that way. But what I prefer to do, let me just get the middle. Oh my goodness, why am I so skewed this morning? There we go. But what you can do is frame your towel, pull your embroidery, what you want to embroider on, in the same direction. Never move your hands, just move to the opposite direction. Always have your hands opposite of each other. And just tighten this. It sounds like a drum. Don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds like a drum. And just tighten the screw. And then what I do, this is my off-cut pieces of stabilizer that I have. I would use a piece of stabilizer. This is also one that stayed over from a bigger project that I did. And I would literally just float this and pin it in place. So a lot of people say they are scared that the machine would run over their pins. But if you go and look on your embroidery design or most of your frames, you have a centimeter around all of the edges that the machine would never embroider on. So if you would just put your pins right up to the edge. I missed it. There we go. Right in the edge, just make sure it's straight and doesn't create any bubbles. You would be fine and your machine would not work over any needles. It's also very important to know that you never should leave your machine when embroidery. So if the embroidery machine works very close to a needle, you could just stop the machine and remove the pin. That one can be a little bit more tighter so it doesn't give us any of these bubbles. But this is how I would frame a towel using my Avalon on top. If it was a thinner towel than this, if you would take it and move it like this and the piles opened or that the fibers opened up, I would float a layer of stitch and tee underneath. But this is a good quality towel. And the same principle applies when you are doing nappies. You can just float the pin, the Avalon, to the top, and if it's a good quality, you don't need a stabilizer underneath. But if it is a bad quality nappy, you can float a piece of stabilizer underneath or ultimately frame the two together. But that again is where personal preference comes in. So is everybody good with that one? Everybody happy with how to frame a towel and Avalon? You're all good? Okay. Something that's very important to look out for when you are embroidering on any towel, on any t-shirts, jackets, denims, anything, is to look out for hoop burn. So I try to tighten this as much as I can so it will give you the look of hoop burn. But hoop burn means whenever you remove this frame, the remnant of the framing stays behind in your fabric, so it shows you where your hoop was. So to remove this, a lot of people try to loosen the screw. Best way is just to go on the back of your hoop and push it out. Then you don't have to struggle. Let's see if I created some hoop burn. I did create a little bit of hoop burn. If you look carefully over here, this is what's considered hoop burn. So you can see it wasn't as tight in here, so that you can't see where the frame was, but over here and there you can see what is hoop burn. So mostly you can wipe it out, especially on a towel you can wipe it out, but on other fabrics you cannot. You have to wash it out. Some people even use a mixture of 1-to-1 water and vinegar to spray it, and then they iron over the design or over wherever they had the hoop burn just to remove it. So it's always important to look out for hoop burn. That's just a side note. Just also move the stabilizers out of the way. The next one we have is a t-shirt. I have a t-shirt over here. So I'm going to work on the back of this one. So this is just a straightforward t-shirt that is nice and skew. So something to always look at when working with t-shirts is that the height of the underarm is the same on both sides. So sometimes you have to compensate for that. I'm just going to take my sewer's companion ruler, get it the right way around. There we go. So to measure it is find the bottom of your underarms, draw a line, and go up 5 centimeters. 4, 5 centimeters, depending on the size of the shirt. You can even go down to 3, because you don't want, this is not the best pen for this shirt, because you don't want the design to sit here in the middle of the back. You want the design to be in the middle of the top of the back. And then when you have your 2 lines, as you can see, there's my second line, you will find the middle. But then again, make sure that your height on both sides down is the same, because I've had t-shirts that differ in up to 2 centimeters on the side. Okay, so this one is giving me 33. Now my math is going to be terrible probably. So 33 divided by 2 is what? 33 is 15. What is 16 and a half? I can't even see the black on the black. There we go. There it is. And you would mark the middle. So that's a general rule of thumb. You can move that second line up or down, but on an average, you would move up 4 to 5. So for this one, I want to frame cutaway, and that's not that one, it's this one. So what did I do with my frame? Goodness, oh, it's behind me. Okay, so I'm going to cut a piece. Make sure you don't cut your shirt. Okay, I am using my 5x7 hoop at the moment because it is the one we use in the office most frequently, and I don't want to waste these pieces of stitching. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to use the floating method on this shirt. So I'm only going to frame, because it is a stretchy shirt, I'm using Cutaway Stabilizer. Make sure your frame is hooped the right way. I have my cutaway, cutaway. Tighten that in the hoop. Make sure it is nice and tight. And then again, make sure there's no bubbles. Okay, it is nice and smooth. Then something I do with my t-shirts is I roll them up. I don't want to sit with just a scrunched up piece of t-shirt and then I have to struggle to keep it out of the way. So I roll it until I reach the line that I've drawn that I want it to be straight on. And then I use 505 spray adhesive. This is the best one to use. We do have others on the market that you can buy at different places. It is not the best to use on your machine, as it gunks up on the nail and it also gunks up on your needle shaft. So you don't want to use anything that leaves, if you spray it, leaves any wetness behind. It has to be dry. It has to be a very, very lightweight temporary spray adhesive. If you have some of the others that's on the market, try and use that up on one project and then clean your machine. That is very, very important. The machines do not like that tacky stickiness on the machines, or even on their needle bars. So what you do is just spray a little bit. As you can see, you don't need much. You cannot really see it. But when I touch it, it doesn't leave a sticky residue. My can is a little bit broken, so it's not giving me the right, there we go, come out. Then what I do is I take my t-shirt and I just open it up so that the one rolls to the bottom or to the back. And I use the lines on my embroidery frame, all of them do have lines, and I align the middle dot. You can also use the grid to help you frame it straight, but I kind of don't use it anymore. I use my ruler, I'm going to show you now, and move your other piece to the back so it's not in the way, and just guide it. Black wasn't the best to use here, and just guide it slightly to the back. Don't try and pull this, because otherwise you would have a stretch in your t-shirt, and you don't want that because it's going to create that stretch in your embroidery design. So once everything is out, all the extras is out of the way, you can pop your shoulder out so it stays to the back. Okay, so what I do when you don't have your embroidery grid with you, I use my Sewers Companion ruler and I place it into the edge until I feel the edge of my hoop. You're not going to see it now, but then I look for where my centimeter mark or my drawn line is earlier. And mine is right there, so it's just on 3, and there it's just on 3, and I move it to the side. And it is straight. Now you can also just use your fingers to guide. A lot of people just do that. Just use an average of a finger width from the edge. So remember, that's the piece where your design is not going to embroider. And then I take a lot of pins and I pin my shirt into place. All around. So I know nothing can move anywhere to the left or to the right. And when you press up from the bottom, don't press too hard because you don't want to move or pull on your stabilizer. I'm not going to pin too much now because otherwise I'm going to take all of your time, because I can go crazy with pins. Okay. And make sure at least you have 3 on each edge, on each long edge, and 2 on short edges. That is a good general rule of thumb to have your project stay in place. So I'm just going to pin this so that I can open it up for you to see. And I know if I'm going to unroll the shirt, it's going to move. Oh, now there's pins everywhere. There we go. So you can never have enough pins. What you can also do, if you have quilting clips, you can just clip this together so you know it's not going anywhere. Come on, here we go. Okay, and then you would move this into your embroidery frame. I always frame so that excess hangs off on the embroidery side, or the embroidery unit side, and the least amount of bulk goes into the inside bed of my machine. I'm just going to open this up over so that you can see ultimately then that is what it looks like. As you can see, I'm pretty straight. Here's the edge, and you can still feel there's my middle notch, and it aligns with my middle mark. So this is for t-shirting. So as you can see now, it's open up, but you don't want to put it in like this. You have to move this out of the way so that there's nothing at the bottom. Come on, here we go. Move it completely out of the way and over that piece. So when it slides in, and that's why I say you never leave your embroidery machine, because you still need to see what's going on here in the middle. Any questions on that one? Anybody does it another way? Or is this a new way for you? Is this the same way that you guys do it? Okay, so moving on to a golf shirt. I'm also going to frame this with Cutaway. Just want to quickly remove all my pins because I want the same piece, not so that I don't waste. And of course I used 10 million pins. Like I say, you can never use too much pins. So I'm just going to use the same piece of Cutaway that I've used because I have a golf shirt over here. And as you can see, this one's already embroidered. Both of our logos on there. So the way that I was taught, and that we use an embroidery to measure golf shirts, and I even see how skew this company worked, is just flip my ruler around. There we go. Is we work from underneath the arm. Let me just move this into your frame. So we work mostly underneath the arm, or you can go on the golf shirt tab. So this tab, or some people call it something else, I can't remember what other people call it. I'm used to calling it a tab. So this company used the bottom line of the tab to embroider, and some use the second line to embroider on. So let's go. I prefer using the second line. It just looks neater, creates a more straight line on the eye. Created. And so from the edge of the tab, this one right here, this edge, the straight up edge, you would work 2 centimeters inward. And this is purely because, especially when you're doing a woman's golf shirt, you don't want the design to be on her breast. Sorry to say that like that. This company is right on the edge of the design. Draw your line right on the edge. And then as you can see here under the arm, but the ruler is reflecting badly, it's an average of 4 centimeters up. That is how deep this tab goes in. So it's either 3 to 4 centimeters. So when you have a shirt that does not have a tab to guide you on, you can always work upwards from underneath your arm and about 3 centimeters inward from the middle line of the shirt. So if you have just a normal t-shirt, this tab is put in so skewly because it's mass production. Okay, so if you have just a normal t-shirt, line straight down the middle, move 3 centimeters in and 3 to 4 centimeters up from underneath the arm. So once you have that line, just gonna make it a little bit more. Right, there we go. Okay. As you can see, this company embroidered right on the edge, which is fine, it's not bad. But I would move this in a little bit more because you don't want a badge to go and hide underneath the arm. So now what you can do with this one, especially when it's golf shirts, I flip my shirt inside out. Flip it inside out. Make sure everything is straight. Okay, so now we're going to frame our stretchy golf shirts. It stretches, not stretchy. Oh my god. Nice and stretchy. But we're going to frame the two together. Our stitch and tee and cutaway and the frame and the shirt in the frame. So I have my piece of stitch and cutaway stabilizer because it is a stretchy fabric. I'm now going to spray the 505, my 505 spray adhesive onto the shirt. Onto the stabilizer. And I'm going to, straight as I can, adhere it to the back of my shirt. Now ultimately you would use a 10 by 10 frame for this, but we don't have an open one. We gave it to a client. So I'm going to use the 5 by 7 again. I need some more spray adhesive. It's too little because my can is broken. It's not spraying nice amounts of and even amounts of. Okay, go. Oh, that is done. It's not spraying even amounts of 505 spray adhesive everywhere. And you're going to flip the shirt in right side out again. And now whenever it's pucker, just make sure it's nice and smooth. So now you have your shirt on your stabilizer. Move the collar out of the way. Again, you can just roll up the bottom edge because it keeps everything nice and neatly out of the way. Look, I'll skew my stabilizer around. I need a new can of spray adhesive. So now what you would do is you would move this in at the bottom. So depending on if you have a big design that you need your 5 by 7 embroidery frame, you can just move it past the buttons. Make sure a button is not in your way, like one of mine is there. Just going to grab the stabilizer here at the top. And then make sure your stabilizer is everywhere in the shirt, everywhere in your frame. So now I'm going to go a little bit skew now, because this is not, why are you doing this? That's always when you're doing a demo, just like some things, they're like, no, I'm not working today. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going going to be difficult. Come on, there we go. There's my stabilizer. So this is why I usually use a big piece of stabilizer with a smaller frame. And I'm just going to see how skew I am in my design, in my framing on this one. Just to move a little bit up because I have the tab over there. I need to open it because this piece of fabric over here is a little bit tight, has a little bit thicker than the rest. Just make sure you don't unscrew the whole frame. Just go in and then just push your hoop in so that it is everywhere. And make sure this can come up. Let me just lift this part because I need this down. There we go. Okay, not too bad, not too skew. Look at me trying to get in there and tighten it nicely. And make sure, absolutely sure, that your frame is level on all edges. Otherwise, when you're going to start embroidering, it's going to pop out. And then again, especially next to the tab, I like to put quite a few pins. And as you can see, I'm not as skew as I thought I was. Okay, I'm not going to pin everywhere now. But now you have your t-shirt or your golf shirt framed with your stabilizer. So that is also a way that you can do it instead of doing the floating method that we did with the t-shirt. Everybody good with that one? Have you seen this one before? Dina, have you used this one before? Elska?
I've seen it with Yvette, yes.
Okay. Nice. So just removing that again. Okay. So next we have our knitwear. So this is just a knit runner. It doesn't have a lot of stretch, but we still need to keep it in place. So you would use, just this one is very easy. You can either float, depending on what you want to do. You can now use any one of the two design or any way of the two methods. You can float it or you can frame it with. Remember to add some spray adhesive. Mine is still tacky because I just used it on the previous one. Make sure your hoop is loose enough to hoop it. I need some more. There we go. Make sure it is flat. And then again, use your piece of Avalon on top. And this is purely because you have a pile on the knit and you don't want the thread, the embroidery thread, from sinking into the design. From sinking into the pile. There we go. And just on the four edges, if you want to pin more, you can. And what's great about the newer embroidery machines is they also have a basting stitch. So you can run a basting stitch all around and then you don't need your pins. So that is a very, very easy and simple way to do knit types of fabrics. Okay. So then last but not least, second last, let me just also show you how to do, just pop this one out, always pop from the back. Then we also want to do freestanding lace. Just grab the right stabilizer, there we go. So for freestanding lace, this one got wet a little bit. It is best to cross weave your stabilizer. So the one would go this way. Let me just move my hand the other way so it's not in the way. So the one would go this way, and the other piece would cross weave in this direction. when you do this, you have a stronger stabilizer. Always with freestanding lace or freestanding projects, you do 2 layers of your stabilizer. As you can see, one is shorter because it was on the short edge, and you would just frame it normally. Now there's 2 ways. You can also 3 different extra pieces that you can use to keep this stabilizer from moving. Because it is so thin, sometimes it does still move around. So you get those non-stick mats from either the Skim or the Crazy store, that you can put it on the inside. I don't have one of those at the moment. That you can just frame with it. So you just cut strips. Some people cut strips so that they can use over and over and over again. Other people cut a specific one for each hoop, and then they just cut out the center. Sometimes they do stretch it, so that is also up to you how you want to do it. Another way that you can do is we have this tape. It's a adhesive tape that adheres to itself that you can put on the inside hoop. So you see, it's only on the inside hoop. That can also help. This one helps especially with your when framing organza. And then another method, this one I prefer, a lot of people don't like this, is I take pins and I just pin the stabilizer around. And I pin it, see if I can show you this one. So it goes in to the back side, there it is, and it comes out to the front again. And I just pin it about 3 to 4 times, depending on my hoop size. And just make sure it comes out all around the edges. And my frame is not level, make sure your frames are level. So those are 3 different methods of just securing your stabilizer in place. Very easy, just to go through to the back and come to the front again. Okay. That is that one. And then the last method that we've spoken about is that you can use 2 layers of stitch and tear instead of 1 layer of cutaway. But ultimately what you can do is you can just frame maybe 1 layer of stitch and tear. So this is also again where, I wouldn't just say experience, but just how comfortable are you with framing different fabrics. So you can either just float it, you can frame 1 layer of stitch and tear and float your fabric on top, and just float a layer of stitch and tear underneath. So floating means you have something that's framed and you just slide in the stabilizer at the bottom. Or you take this out. I know I always try and unscrew it, but it never works. Spray. Just remove that so I can. So this is just roughly framing it. You would frame so that you save the most amount of your fabric and your stabilizer. And you can frame together, which is ultimately the best way to do it. Just where's the edges of my hoop? There we go. And tighten it. It's quite tight. Make sure your frame is level. And you can again float this. Or you can frame your second layer of stabilizer with your first.